This is so stupid. This is what it takes to be making your first YouTube video. Isn't it so awesome? I love this. Here we are. Oh my God. This is so awesome. Anyway, Bungie, I love the games you make, and I have hope that you have a vision for Marathon and the release and what is going to happen. But I don't know if consumers have that same agreement with you and understanding of what that vision might be. Now, what I want to talk about today, marking my first YouTube video, I want to talk about extraction shooters. I want to talk about looter shooters. I want to talk about Bungie and their place in that market share. I want to talk about Borderlands. I want to talk about what is possibly ahead. Hi, I'm Jay Parm. You can also call me JP or whatever's easiest for you. And today we're talking about what was announced with Marathon about 7 days ago. Bungie's history with Marathon starts with the single player game that is Marathon. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about Marathon and the campaign and the story or the background. What I will say is that with it becoming an extraction shooter, PvP focused game, you're excluding an audience potentially that would be interested in it just for that lore reason. With Bungie announcing Marathon, you have an audience of potentially old head gamers that played the original campaign single player first person shooter. Now, once again, I don't know any of the lore, any of the story, but it's important to understand that that audience might be looking for that again in this, and they're probably not going to get that. Marathon is an extraction shooter. It is not a single player first person shooter. This is completely different. This is a focus on pure PvP with some PvE elements. You have Tarkov, you have DMZ beta from Warzone, and then you also have the failed project that is Frontier, the Cycle. Now, we'll get to those later in the video, but the focus is right now on Marathon. Does Marathon, from what it's shown, have what it takes to be among Tarkov, to have that kind of market share? I can't say for sure right now, but what I do know is that Bungie has shown, especially with Destiny 2, that they understand first-person shooting mechanics, game feel, and gameplay. With Marathon's announcement, one of the first things I wanted to know was, are they using the Tiger engine? Now, for those of you who don't know, the Tiger engine is what they use for Destiny. Destiny 2, for me personally, is one of the greatest feeling first-person shooters right now. As a Destiny 2 fan, you know, maybe I'm a little biased, but I will take that over another Unreal Engine 5 game that just feels the same as everything else out there. Give Destiny 2 a try. I promise you the gun feel, if you're an FPS enjoyer, is top of the line. Now, with that, I have confidence in Marathon and how the gun feel and everything will play out. Additionally, with Marathon and it being only next gen from what we know so far, this allows Bungie to stretch its legs with the Tiger engine. What I'm getting with that is, with Destiny 2, what they're able to do with the Tiger engine is limited because they still are having to adhere to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One specifications. Everything that happens in the game can only go so far because of the limitations of those consoles and having to adhere to those previous gen consoles. It's 2025. Those consoles came out in 2013, 10 plus years, and we're still using that. So Destiny 2 feels dated in that sense. But with Marathon, we might be able to see what the limits of the Tiger engine are. And from what the gameplay shows, it seems pretty good. Now, what I will say is that Marathon, from what they've shown, is a little soft. It doesn't have this oomph. It doesn't have this feeling of like heavy impact. That is because of the comparison to Tarkov. It has this hyper realism, this kind of clunky, junky feeling to it, whereas Marathon is this smooth glide, hyper movement aspect to it, which to me, and I would assume a lot of extraction shooter players, are not really used to. And I feel like that is put in there to have an opening for new players to the extraction shooter genre. But if you're making a game for everyone, will it actually be for everyone, or will it be for no one? And this leads me into my next point with how they will be able to bring in people who have played Destiny or people who have not played extraction shooters at all into this environment. With some articles and some videos that I've watched, it's pretty clear that the onboarding process is very bare bones. Now, it could definitely become more intricate as the months roll on. We have the closed alpha coming up. Maybe with that, it will include a new kind of intro to the game / tutorial. They have till September, and maybe there's more. But with an extraction shooter, you have these players who are just told, go collect things, and you extract, and you survive. That's it. You kill other players, you kill other NPCs, and you survive. But for someone who is new to extraction shooters, or maybe just new to shooters, but wanting to get into Marathon because they like the aesthetic, it might be incredibly difficult in order for them to grow. With extraction shooters, you only have so many engagements that allow you to grow as a player. When you have an arena shooter with Call of Duty and the Crucible, which is in Destiny 2, your time in between engagements is so short, and it allows you to kind of grow and improve as a player. With extraction shooters, you get shot and killed, you're back to the lobby, you're having to do all these things, load in, wait, who knows how long that's going to take before you can get into the next match, and then gear up and then have that engagement again potentially. How much is there for you as a new player to learn and grow in order to become a better player? And how many times are you going to get killed in the game before you decide to give up? This leads into them having premium pricing for the game. Not as so much a $60 or $70 title. It is rumored that it'll be a $40 title. I think this is important to cement themselves into, because if they make it a free-to-play game, yes, the cost of entry is free, but psychologically, it makes it so that people are more able to leave a game because there is little to no investment for them monetarily. If I'm paying for a game, then I need to get my money's worth out of it. Obviously, if I'm purchasing on Steam and I've played for less than those 2 hours, sure, I can get that refund. But once those 2 hours are up, that game's mine. And I want to make sure that I'm getting my money's worth. This is going off topic here, but I think it's important for Bungie to understand that onboarding new extraction shooter players and veteran is going to be incredibly difficult when it's already such a niche game type. Now, Bungie already talked about how there's going to be raid-like mechanics within Marathon. Now, does that mean we're going to be having a Callus or Atheon style boss fight within Marathon? I doubt it. Are we maybe going to be doing some puzzles and some ARG-like things? Sure. But it's probably not going to be the raid-like functions that, you know, a Destiny veteran is going to be looking for. Maybe it's something like collecting nuke codes in DMZ and Warzone, entering key cards and something along those lines, and some puzzles in between. Let's talk about extraction shooters and looter shooters and how that's important here. Bungie is, as of right now, only known for Destiny and Destiny 2. Destiny 2 is this first-person shooter, looter shooter, MMOS game. Really the only one of its kind where you have a lot of games that have tried to reach even an inkling of what it has in essence. Games such as The First Descendant, Outriders, Anthem. All of those games have not reached the same player base, the same pull as what Destiny 2 has. And this is important because with Bungie pivoting into Marathon and also trying to support Destiny 2, are they trying to bring their player base from Destiny into Marathon, or are they trying to create a whole new player base? I think it's important to talk about player base and market share. Tarkov, being really the #1 extraction shooter, has no shared analytics on how their player base is, but from certain third-party websites, they say that they have a daily active player base of around 80,000 players with a 30-day of 1.7 million. That's pretty good. The only thing is, how much of that audience is going to move over to Marathon, and how many new players are going to show up into the extraction shooter arena to make Marathon a worth it product for Bungie to continue to pursue? With how unique and niche the extraction shooter genre is, will Marathon be able to pull enough and bring in new blood in order for it to stand on its own? I don't know. One of the other things I want to talk about is the release date. Marathon is slated to release on September 23rd, 2025 this year. That shares the same release date as another huge game coming out this year, being Borderlands 4. Now, why does that have any significance? extraction shooter and looter shooter share the same genre. So why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because while Marathon is not a looter shooter, Bungie has one of the biggest looter shooters out there, being Destiny 2. And they're hoping that some of that player base is shared into Marathon. But at the same time, I think it's ignorant to say that this shared player base of Destiny 2 is also interested in a looter shooter such as Borderlands. Borderlands doesn't have the same MMO aspects as Destiny does, but maybe Borderlands 4 will improve upon that and will bring more people over from Destiny. Another thing I was thinking about during the Marathon reveal, and I saw in the live comments and chat, is that during that gameplay reveal, it looked very similar to another extraction shooter that I used to play a little bit of, even though it's shut down now, and that's the Cycle Frontier. It was a fun, free-to-play extraction shooter, and kind of like baby's first extraction shooter with kind of how basic it was. But it was fairly fun in my opinion, and could have gone somewhere if it had the right backing and if it had more of a player base. But obviously there was a lot of rocky development with the developers and the publishers, and so it had been shut down after some changes had been made. But with that, it seems as though Marathon, it just had this look like the Cycle Frontier. I don't really know how to explain it, but it just had that feel. Something important to bring up is that when you watch some of this gameplay reveal for Marathon is movement. When I bring up movement, I'm talking about sliding and jumping and dashing and abilities. Now, not so much just in extraction shooters, but let's also talk about maybe battle royales. One of the main culprits of this is Warzone. People have always had an issue with how movement works in a lot of these games. Same with Apex as well. You have these movement demons. With what Marathon has shown, is that something that extraction shooter players are looking for? With something like Tarkov, you have these hyper-realistic movements of the way they crouch, the way they prone, the way they lean, where they're shot in their body, and how they run based on what they're carrying with them. And in this gameplay reveal, they're showing these class-based characters that have these dashes, invisibilities, and very similar to what is in Apex or abilities that are in Destiny itself. And I feel as though that this will become a high skill ceiling that will push players away from playing the game. And it also leads to potentially a loss of mystique in the extraction shooter genre. And what I'm realizing as I'm even saying this is that we haven't even brought up one of the most important extraction shooters in the genre, and that is Hunt Showdown. Granted, I can't stand Hunt Showdown. I don't like the time period. I don't really like how the game feels. But what I will say is that it looks gorgeous and is some of the greatest game sound design I've ever experienced in my life. But once again, Hunt and Tarkov share in this hyper realism of mending and tending your wounds, your burns, your bleeds, how you're moving and traversing based on sound. With Marathon, it just feels like I'm playing Destiny on a bigger map and I have one life and I'm picking up weapons as I go. I'm not trying to sound all doom and gloom. You know, I'm not Gloomiest Maximus from the goddamn Roly-Poly-Oly movie, if you get that. It just seems like there is a serious disconnect on what the vision for Marathon is. You know, like I was saying earlier, I think it's important to recognize how many players are going to show up looking for the lore and story that was told in the original Marathon in, what was it, 1994? Are they going to find that here? Or is it going to be like Destiny where I do an achievement and I get a grimoire card that I got to go read in a separate menu? I'll leave off with this. Marathon's presentation had left me with wanting to know way more than what they were showing. I think as consumers, we went into it wanting immediately off the rip to get gameplay, and that's not something we got. No offense to the developers and everyone on the team, but I think the last thing that consumers wanted was to go into a live stream and see everyone talk about how they made the game, how awesome the game is, before they even showed gameplay for so many minutes. But then to end it off with that cinematic about what Marathon is, that was awesome. You probably could have led with that. The only problem is, how are you going to convey what that 8-minute cinematic, trailer was into the released game? What is that going to look like? I've been rambling for I don't know how many minutes. Regardless, we have a lot more time until September, when Marathon launches alongside Borderlands 4. I'd like to know your thoughts. Leave a comment. leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a dislike if you didn't. This has been my first video. And once again, I'm J Parm or JP, or like I said, whatever is easiest for you. I appreciate you watching the video until the end. And until the next time, peace.